Welcome to an incomplete guide to personal growth. We invite you to take a breath and take a listen to our podcast that explores the wonder, humor, challenges, and sometimes those self-inflicted wounds on the journey of personal growth.
Our weekly podcast conversations include stories, resources, and tools that you can incorporate into your daily life. We're the mother-daughter duo of Sydney West
and Kelly Arundel.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, Sydney.
How are you?
I am doing great.
That's good.
I've got music in my head.
You
I've got
are
music
still
in my head.
on a high.
I am.
Tell the people.
Went to see Donny Osmond
Whoa.
last night. His little Vegas shows on tour through the summer.
So good. For those that don't know who he is.
So my thought is, first of all, we were having dinner, and Lauren says, so who's going to see Donna Oliver?
That's what it is.
And I was
she
like,
said something stupid.
Okay, she doesn't know.
Not stupid,
and
but
she
very
knows,
incorrect.
She knows music.
Yeah.
And she knows all the old music.
Yeah.
But she didn't know Donny Osmond. And I thought,
I knew. So what you might know him from for the general public was Mulan. He played the main general person that sang "I'll Make a Man Out of You," the best song in the whole movie.
Yeah.
He sang that. And then he was also Joseph in the movie version of Joseph and the Technicolor.
And on Broadway.
And on Broadway. Oh, yeah, he did both.
Broadway.
You're right, he did both.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. And he did several of the Broadway shows.
He has done 65 albums.
That's insane.
The man is 66 years old.
Yeah. And so he did multiple.
He used to tour with his brothers, the Osmond brothers, and then he and his sister Marie had a show, the Donnie and Marie show, and it was so good. It was like a variety show, and it was just fun. And so anyway, I'm thinking, okay, what's the audience? It's a nice Tobin Center here in San Antonio, and it was what I expected.
And what Dad went with you, who is not always into that.
He didn't even know. I don't think he listened. He saw some of the show, but he didn't listen to the Donnie and Marie show.
Yeah, but he didn't listen to Donnie.
He wasn't. Yeah, I mean, he was the girls screamed for him. So, and they did last night. That was really
so
interesting.
Funny.
But anyway, he does a fantastic show with a variety of music and spanning his career, and it was really good show.
Oh yeah, I saw a clip, and he kept his voice up very well.
Yes, and as Dad said, he is an entertainer, and he really is. He came out into the audience.
That's so good.
It was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's what you want. I feel like you don't want to go to those shows and just have them sing their songs just to sing them. Like you want to be entertained.
And when it's in that venue,
and that's
just
big
the right
space
size.
to fill.
Yeah, it is, but it's not like the AT&T Center
it's
somewhere.
Not like a stadium,
but it's a nice, and it was really good.
That's
but it was sold out. So there we go.
Well, go listen to some Donny Osmond today. Yes, and this fits in with our theme because he uses his voice, and we're talking about this month.
And he was quite a communicator.
So we're talking this month about using your voice and how to use it well. And so we're kind of doing a little preview episode and kind of talking a little bit about how we use our voice in society right now, and kind of what has happened to communication. That's kind of the main point too, is how do you communicate with other people using your voice in a good way? And so... and
not your fingers.
What? Texting. Oh, I thought... You use it a little too much.
You thought I meant that.
I did, but no. You are dying.
Oh my God, that just tells you.
You are dying,
okay,
I know.
I think I'm beat red.
It's hilarious.
No, I meant texting.
I know, you meant texting. You meant texting. Oh, that's
I've
lovely.
I've done that a time or two.
Just a couple.
So.
Just a couple.
Oh my gosh.
I think other people will too. It's the way you said it. It's not just you.
I know.
And so how to communicate well. What's happened to communication these days? Because everybody says, I'm bad at communicating, or other people are bad at communicating. Mm-hmm. So that's what a lot of this month has to do with. And so today, some points I want to kind of hit on in our little intro episode is... It does feel like there's a lot of hateful speech, hateful tones, like not even tone of voice, because it's over internet most of the time. But hateful speech towards other people. Also, I feel like people today don't really understand the art of communication, and there is an art to it. You don't just say the first thing that pops into your head. And then the third point is, of course, talking about the internet and how it makes communication harder and I think more complicated. So with this first thing, so hateful speech, I feel like a lot of it has to do with people making assumptions. And so do you have any tips on how we maybe don't just make assumptions when we're talking to other people?
Okay.
Like assumptions about who they are, what maybe they believe. How do we approach people without, these assuming categories?
Exactly. I wish we didn't have to label everything.
Yeah.
I really don't. There's somebody down the street that has a political sign out. It's not who I'm voting for.
Right.
Do I have to assume everything about that person? No, because I've had conversations with them one-on-one. And I know who they are. I get to know them. Yeah. And I don't categorize them with a group. And that's religious as well. I mean, it's the whole bucket.
Yes.
And so I think one of it is stepping back and going, wait, that's an individual. And if we think about how we're categorized,
how other people see us,
do us, we may stop that. It may slow us down a bit to go, well, everybody, because it was one of the election cycles. I don't want to be political about it, but somebody said, well, all those liberals are not faithful, or not Christian, or not and it was an all, and I very seldom respond, but it was a friend of mine's post, somebody had commented about it on him, and I just simply responded, I don't get offended, Mitch, but that is really a blanket statement that is completely false. Yeah. And because I'm one. So let me tell you, and it was just blank,
it's
blanketing
the blanket statements
everything.
That I think then feed other people into being.
And then I don't get to know the rest of the person who I don't, and my guess is anybody that even as different as they are, I could probably, find one common thread.
One thing in common,
if they have kids, or if they've had a hard time, if they've had a family member with cancer, if they've had that's a commonality.
And I think this is not saying it has to get to a point where you actually form a friendship with it, because there's probably just too much not in common for you to do that. But it's to a point where you can at least start from a place of respect.
Exactly. It's a respect and a recognition of an individual who is a worthy person too. And just... and
I think it goes to that thing of, we can only control ourselves. So how do you want to be the person to treat other people? How do you want to be treated? Let's treat other people like that. That's what you can control. And I think it's the assumptions that really get in our way when we talk to other people.
They do. And and again, it's those blanket statements. It's assuming somebody is a certain way, and then I never have the chance. This happened last night, Donnie Osmond's show. There was this lady sitting next to me. I thought, oh, she's going to be a doozy. Why did I think that? I have no idea. It was her mannerisms or something. And I turned and we started talking about something, and it was like,
it was fun.
She is a fun person.
That's hilarious.
And it was like, I made an assumption. And it was, why did I even do that? Right?
Yeah, and it automatically just, they can get to your mind to a negative space where you don't need to be.
And we end up just laughing. So it,
And so how... Then you can rephrase this question.
Okay.
How do we keep the hate out of like how we talk?
The biggest part for me is stepping back.
Yeah.
Stopping before I do something. Before I text something or put something on the neighborhood app that I thought was, commenting on somebody else. Why do I need to?
Yeah.
Is one of the questions.
Why engage in the first place?
Yeah, right. And the word hate, I don't.
Yeah.
But that's what it is out there. That's what people are calling it. Dislike. Hate is such a very strong visceral word. I try not to use it.
And you've always said that since we were young.
Yes.
We're like, don't say that
Dislike, word. You don't care for something. Whatever. But it's that, because that is such deep, there's a soul to everybody, and that's what gets me. But one of those is really stepping back and taking a breath and saying, rather than focusing on them, look at me again and say,
Yeah.
why does that bother you? Well, it bothers me because it's a great injustice. It bothers me because what they said offended and hurt.
Someone
Really
else or
offended.
you
I mean,
or-
everybody's
yeah.
offended by everything. So somebody was actually hurt by that.
Yeah.
And okay, so that's where that's coming from. It's not that person indirect, it's their words. And people spout words. I spout words. I do, and, but it's that stepping back and stop looking at them, look at myself again.
Yeah.
And go, okay, what would be something to do? Maybe I don't even bother with that person, but I respond to the person that was hurt.
Yeah.
And go, I'm sorry that came that way for you, whatever it may be. But stop and look, where do I really want to direct myself toward?
Yeah.
Toward that person that, for whatever reason, feels the need and has such anger or whatever is going on in their life, and we all have stuff, that they just have to spout.
And probably won't hear you anyway,
right.
if you were to talk to them.
Right, so where do I want to direct my energy toward?
Yeah.
Somebody like that? Who is not going to, it's going to feed it is what that's going to do.
Yes.
Or do I want to redirect
And
towards something in a
empathize
positive?
instead with the person
For me,
that was hurt.
yeah, because there's a different energy I feel within me.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that I do something positive instead of negative.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, that hateful speech that's out there today is hard to...
It is.
It's hard to
that's,
confront.
Yeah.
But I think turning it inward, thinking about our own assumptions, thinking about how we want to do our energy, because again, that's all we can control. Right. And I think if more people did that, then there would be less hateful speech out there in the first place.
Yeah, and I just think it doesn't mean I don't get angry. It doesn't mean that I don't, but what do I do with that?
Yes. So that's kind of my first point. The second point with the art of communication, that is something that we're going to touch on over the next 2 weeks. And I'll recap this at the end too, but the book Crucial Conversations, if you want to go ahead and get it now, you can. It is a book all about the art of communication. And so we'll have kind of a week that discusses in the workplace and then a week where we discuss about it in your personal life and how to use that. And so I won't touch too much on the art of communication now, but I will say if you want to get the book, that would probably be helpful this month. And then now I want to kind of touch on how internet, and when I say internet, I also mean texting. I mean email.
All the ways, social media.
Yeah, social media, like kind of just general online-ness. How it makes communication harder and more complicated. So there are a few things. I did do some reading.
I just had a thought.
Yeah. Okay.
Squirrel.
Okay.
So as you were talking about, I was thinking about, all the social media, why people blurt out.
Yeah.
Do they think they can't be heard anywhere?
Potentially.
So they just do it there?
Yeah.
Because other people
If other people
listening.
in their lives aren't really listening to them, then that's a place they can put in maybe something here. That's a good thought. Maybe we'll touch on that again. That's a good squirrel thought. So I did do some reading on this topic when it comes to internet and stuff. So a big thing is with humans, and honestly other, maybe more with like apes and monkeys. But anyway, with people is we have our face. And facial cues are huge in communicating with other people. And we literally are evolved to read them. And then tone of voice as well. Those are two big things when it comes to actual communication. And obviously with the internet, a lot of times you don't get either. And even if you're using Zoom and stuff, it may be kind of delayed. You don't always get all the the finesse of in person. So it's better, but you don't get it. And so that is a big issue when it comes to internet communication with other people because that is totally taken out. And
if you're in Zoom or Teams, whatever you may be on, as with several people, there's no way there's eye contact.
No. Yeah.
Because anyway, you're looking at the camera, you're really not looking at their eyes.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at their eyes,
they can't see you.
You can't see. Yeah. So there isn't.
God. Yeah. And so then this is kind of twofold. You don't get the benefits of that eye contact, that facial expression. And then two, because then you can use that, I suppose it could be an advantage. You can cop out of in-person conversations. You can use it as a cop out of like, well, this is going to be hard to face. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Which I have
And
100%
and
done.
it's the facial recognition, but just the whole body language.
Like, yes, all body language too.
All
And we have
body language.
I mean,
because
everybody
they're not
naturally-
seeing they're not seeing.
No, everybody
how
naturally
I'm
uses their
sitting.
hands. They're
Yeah.
literal. Like Charles, he will put random hand movements to words that I did not teach him.
Right.
Like, it is so innate to use body language when you're talking.
Well, you're just using your hands right now.
I know, exactly.
And now, if you're on Zoom, you gotta have them up here in your
Oh,
head,
and you can't really do
can't.
that.
Yeah. So
And so all of those things that we have evolved as people to use and read and do in conversation are taken out
yeah.
when you're doing the internet. And so it's so, again, even more so, those assumptions of what people are thinking and why they're doing and saying what they're saying are super heightened
Yes.
on the internet.
And on the internet, and then we've mentioned this through through texting or other messages, emails. I make assumptions when I'm typing that somebody knows what I'm doing.
Yes.
Whether I'm texting or whether I'm emailing. And
then there's a whole thing of communication loss.
I read that wrong. Yeah. Oh, they didn't mean that, and I've been offended for a week or two, or been hurt, or whatever it is.
And you maybe would have caught up on that if you heard if they heard your tone of voice, or if you heard their tone of voice, or what
and so I just
that whole thing is taken out.
Right.
And so, in your opinion, what is the best thing and the worst thing about internet communication?
The best thing is for me.
Yeah.
Is that I can find a meme, whatever they're called, and that I think is funny and relates to somebody that I friend or family, and I can shoot it to them.
And then they know you're thinking
and
about them.
And they know I'm thinking about them.
That
and
is nice.
And a lot of times I like to do funny.
Yeah.
Laugh and my one sister-in-law and I will we'll send next door stuff back and forth because we think some of it's so outrageous and we just laugh.
That app.
But I mean, it just depends. But to me, that is a real benefit of it.
Yeah.
Because I may not always have the time.
Or you may not see them in person.
Or I may not see them, and I can't call them all the time, and I can't do that. So it's just that, love you.
It's the quick things.
Thinking
that
of
is
you.
nice. And those light up a person's day.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that I think has been a really great blessing. I mean, I love
Here,
those.
I'll do my best thing too, and then,
Okay.
we'll go to ours. So I think for me, it's just time is precious. And so I think it can be hard. And yeah, you show you're prioritizing somebody by talking to them on the phone all the time. But I think it is really difficult, just especially with kids and then with activities and everything that's going on, to be able to send text messages back and forth and stay in the loop. I think with people that I usually, in a typical life before internet, I probably wouldn't have kept in the loop with, because it's hard to find the time to write down a freaking letter, write a whole letter or make sure you got the phone call, all that stuff. And so it helps with keeping up with people long distance that you may not usually be able to keep up with. And so I think it can enhance your social life in that way.
Yeah. So the worst thing about the internet or the communication.
Yeah. Specifically communication. There's a lot of bad things about the internet.
No, we won't go there.
Specifically about communicating over the internet. Yes.
I think it goes back to the speech of that I'm having to rehome my cat. Yeah. Does anybody know of a place? Nobody knows the reasons you need to rehome it, but somebody feels like it's their duty to tell you wouldn't rehome your kid. What? No joke. That was it.
Oh my gosh.
And it's
That's
like
awful.
That type of communication.
Yeah.
That you have no idea what's going on. You didn't find out. You don't even know this person.
Yeah, and you can't just offer an advice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that type of communication, I don't even think that's communicating.
It's just.
But the other thing about the worst is it kind of lets you off the hook.
It does.
And telling some things just need to be told face to face.
Yeah.
And those are the crucial conversations we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
I just assume do this not to your face.
I too think being able to get out of conversations is kind of the worst. Like, my
it's the best and the worst.
I know exactly. My initial reaction is like, oh, that's the best. And I think I probably used it when I was younger a lot more. And there are a few times now where I'm like, I really cannot face you. I've just got to. And sometimes for your mental health, that is nice. But But I agree. I think we use it too often to get out of important conversations that maybe had in person. And to me, that kind of is also like, that's probably also my worst. Like when it comes to what I think about internet community, that's kind of that. And then the thing that you talked about where people can kind of just the anonymity of being able to say what you want and people can't really come after you. I think that it makes you feel like you have too much power. It makes it like kind of feeds that. And I think,
no, go ahead.
And I think that worst that we were talking about, it kind of feeds into kind of my last point about this is that people, especially younger people, they don't get to practice in-person conversations very much. And so then it becomes increasingly more difficult for them because even your teachers, a lot of times, if you have questions, you can email them, but there's some value in going in person to your teacher and asking a question and then seeing, they're not going to treat me silly for it. Because there have been times where I'm like, well, do I want to ask my professor this in person or do I just want to send them an email about it?
And then you form a relationship because you usually don't just stop at that question.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of other conversation that goes on.
Or they may have more to give you or whatever. Yeah.
So I know that, I mean, I'm sure it's helpful for them at times because you can do those quick ones, but at this quick answers and stuff. The other thing I was thinking is that I'm not a telephone person. I'm just not.
I know, talking on the phone,
Yeah, but it's necessary to have so it's been, it's been nice to go, I'll just shoot that. But I can remember when I was working in church and needing to talk to people, I would have my list of people that I was going to be calling that week or needed to. I would seek them out to have face-to-face conversations instead of calling, because then I could see their reaction when I was asking them questions about stuff, and I could see and go, okay, no, they're really not into this. Let's find somebody else, or whatever it was.
That helps.
So I would really work hard at having the in-person conversations.
That's cool. Yeah.
So that I wouldn't have to do it over the phone.
Yeah.
Because I always think, am I interrupting them? Is something going on?
I know that's the hard thing nowadays is I feel like calling, you always feel like you're interrupting somebody. But then at the same time, maybe don't text them your whole question. Maybe text, hey, when is it good time for a almost more setting that up. And that can be hard. And maybe their schedule's really busy. So you do need to text it to them. But you can find that out.
Right.
But I think a lot of people, just because of the email and the texting, and there is an art to emailing that people need to learn. Because I've heard a lot of people complaining, especially in business, about people not knowing how to write a proper email. They're emailing like they're texting, and it's awful.
Right.
But
I have heard that.
But then you lose the art of in-person communication. So then there's so much more anxiety wrapped around going and doing an interview, or so much more anxiety wrapped around literally just telling somebody something that's difficult. Whatever that is in your life. If it's something that's difficult to say, then they use the cop out with the internet, and it's like, but you really need to learn how to communicate that verbally. There's so much more that comes from your voice and your intonation and your body language, and so much that can really come from that. That having those difficult, quote unquote, difficult conversations may actually turn out to be easier once you get it going in person. It's that first couple sentences you got to get through. And
I can't have a discussion,
a serious
on
one.
Text.
Yeah.
I know people have tried it, and I can't do that because it takes me long to do it. But so much is lost, and I read what they say differently than what was written, and the emojis, I'm totally lost on those. So, you lose me. And to me, then there's time in between of waiting for the response, and then what does that mean? Whereas we can just have the discussion.
Yes. Yeah. And I think maybe some might say, well, I can think more and think through what I'm going to say more. I mean, then
do that ahead of time.
Exactly. Do some of that ahead of time. You can kind of predict a little bit.
I write out my stuff and I predict. But, the other thing about predicting, though, is going, well, let me just
wait and see.
If I have a conversation with somebody ahead of time to go, okay, I'm going to have, like one time I was needing to talk with somebody in my workplace. I went to my boss.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is really bothering me, or I heard this and I'm needing to address it. And it was like, okay, well, let's imagine what the response might be. And when I had it talk to him through it, I thought, oh, that's not near as bad as what's in my head.
Right.
And then the response that I got from that coworker was even better. And it was like,
you build up so much.
That was, if I just stay in my head, you know.
And sometimes then the internet lets you do that, because if they don't respond right away, you're waiting, then you build all this stuff up in your head. Just have the conversation and do it real time, you know, as it's kind of meant to be, you know.
You know, and so this is my other take on having these hard conversations or any, you know, is stop a few minutes ahead of time, take some space.
Oh, yeah.
To breathe. And to ask that the best can come from this.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, I'm not doing this out of hate. I'm not doing this out of anger. Even though there may be anger within me, that's not my intent.
Right.
But let this conversation, in some terms you'd say be blessed, be given, you know, good, a positive thing for all people.
Yeah. And I think, if you don't...
Let me be open.
And if you don't have the chance to practice that, though, then you're never going to learn. And so I think the internet takes away those opportunities to really learn how to talk to other people. I mean, obviously, COVID did not help that at all either. No. But, I mean, it would have been inevitable to later. I think it just kind of fast-tracked it. Well, but it's just learning that art,
it's the art. And, you know, I can recall a couple of times when my daughters have texted me for difficult conversations, and they're in the same house at that time. Yes. And it was like, I guess you can come downstairs.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So we have 100% done that.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Parents can help with that.
Yes. So this is the kind of conversation we're going to be having over the next few weeks. We have someone coming in that is trained in crucial. You can get training in crucial conversations. She has been a leader in this, and she is currently in the workforce. So hopefully that will be a good conversation for those of you, that are trying to navigate difficult workplace conversations, how she's kind of used that to help herself. That'll be one of them. And then we're also going to talk to my dad in a couple weeks. He's very good at this stuff, and how he uses crucial conversations even in his personal life, and has done that for years and years. And then we'll kind of wrap it up with, you know, spiritually and self-esteem wise, how to use your voice to help you and your personal growth is kind of what we're going with this month. So I think it'll be great. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Patreon. We'll have some meditations that go along with this, through our Patreon page. And then, follow us on YouTube. Give us some likes. If you have questions from this month, please email them to us or direct message, whatever you want to do.
Great. Look forward to next week when we take a breath and take a listen.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of An Incomplete Guide to Personal Growth. There are many ways you can stay connected. Follow us on Instagram at An Incomplete Guide Podcast, where you can sign up for our email list and get posts that delve deeper into our weekly topics. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast page wherever you listen to your podcasts. We would really appreciate a rating and sharing us with your family and friends.
We're so glad you chose to spend your time with us, and hope there was a thought, a resource, or a laugh that you can take on your journey. We'll be here every Tuesday for you to take a breath and take a listen.